Hello and welcome to Taking a Page from Barnes & Noble, the next chapter in their cloud journey. Today's webinar is sponsored by Nasuni and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box there in your webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. The Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know there in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Now, second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll notice that we're offering a lot of resources today. There's an ebook on ransomware trends, impacts, and the role of data storage. There's a cost savings calculator. There's a form to request a demo. There's a Nasuni solution overview. And while we're focused on Barnes & Noble's experience with Nasuni in today's webcast, there's another proof point in the handouts about TGI Friday's experience. So if you'd like some additional customer evidence, that's also there. So check out those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Now, third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Best Buy gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for that prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. So to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Best Buy gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. So after the event is over, we'll look at all the questions that came in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get to today's fantastic conversation. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Ben Clark, who's Senior Product Marketing Manager for Nasuni, and Richard Llewellyn, who's Director of Infrastructure at Barnes & Noble. Ben, Richard, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Scott.
Hi, Scott. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Well, Ben, I'll turn things over to you to get us going.
All right, thank you. And thank you for everyone for joining. So today, first wanted to just take a few minutes to talk a little bit about Nasuni. If some people on the call don't really know too much about us, talk about who we are and what we do for file data. And so that should just be a few minutes, and then we're going to jump right into the conversation with Richard and learn about Barnes & Noble's journey to the cloud. So to kick it off, when we're talking about storage, data, specifically file data, every organization cares about a few things, and scale, performance, and security are at the top of that list. File data and data in general are increasing. The amount of data is increasing exponentially, every year. When that data is increasing and increasing, that can become extremely costly and complex. When we're looking at legacy data centers, we're seeing a lot more of distributed workforces, multiple locations, a lot more collaboration all around the world with remote workers and different location, things like that. So performance at that scale is extremely important. And then, of course, security. You've maybe seen my face on these Actual Tech webinars before. I've done a few on our ransomware solution for Nasuni, but ransomware security is, out there and getting more and more of a prevalent threat. So that's important as well. And, with the scale, as we're seeing it today, sometimes traditional file storage and data protection just doesn't cut it. And a lot of times it looks like this, a ton of different data silos, not being able to handle the load of remote workers or remote access. You may have a different tool for your backup as opposed to your storage, DR overhead, admin overhead, complexity with file synchronization and collaboration between users and locations. You might have separate ransomware and security solutions that are not resilient and don't work well with all these different tools, as well as shadow IT. So a lot of the problems we're seeing these days, especially when we're looking at traditional file storage. And so a few stats from Gartner coming up in the direction that the industry is moving into: simplifying file storage operations. So by 2028, 70% of file and object storage will be deployed on a consolidated unstructured data storage platform, up from 35% in early 2023. And on the next slide, maybe this is a new term, but that Gartner is using nowadays: hybrid cloud file data services. So by 2027, 60% of I&O leaders will implement hybrid cloud file deployments, up from 20% in early 2023. And so that's the direction the industry is moving to handle these main pillars of scale, performance, and security. And that's what Nasuni is doing for our customers. So taking a look at Nasuni's hybrid cloud file data services and file data platform. So what Nasuni does is provide all the capabilities of your primary file shares, backup, recovery, ransomware protection, disaster recovery, and multi-site synchronization, all in one solution because of our cloud-native architecture. And so on Nasuni, all of your file data resides in cloud object storage. And if you're familiar with that, like Amazon S3, Azure Blob, or Google Cloud Object Storage. And we also support on-premise object storage. But if you're familiar with object storage, it's different than block storage. It's more durable and it's extremely scalable at a much lower cost. And so we use object storage for storing all of our customers' file data that allows volumes and files of any size, as well as the metadata to describe those files, and unlimited immutable versions. And so we covered scale on the left side, flexibility between multi-clouds, no more silos of data, and then looking at both data security and edge performance. So at the bottom, you can see Nasuni's edge instances, which are access points to this global file system in the cloud. And so what these are lightweight VMs that cache copies of active data from that object storage in on-premise locations or cloud regions. So you get, no matter how much data you have in the cloud, these edge instances are caching this active data, so you're not experiencing any latency as if the data is on-prem. And when we're looking at, from a security point of view, these edge instances are the front line of your data protection strategy. So sending unlimited snapshots to the cloud at very tight intervals, where they become immutable objects and are basically impervious to ransomware. And so with Nasuni, we have customers with multiple petabytes of data. They have snapshots that could be taken every few minutes. And some of our larger customers that we've had for years and years have never got rid of any snapshots. And I think some of our largest customers actually have over 1 billion snapshots of their data, which seems like a crazy number, but they've just retained these snapshots the entire time they've been Nasuni customers. And so that's a little overview of what we do. And right before we get into the conversation, learning about why Barnes & Noble took their journey to put their data in the cloud. So why overall would organizations choose to move their file data to the cloud? So there's many reasons: cost avoidance and modernization. There can be a lot of reduced costs and less hardware turnover moving to the cloud, modernizing infrastructure. A lot of organizations are now making an initiative to move to the cloud. Global risk reduction. We talked about some of the benefits for security and ransomware by having those immutable copies in the cloud. Operational efficiency, as well as business productivity. Better and faster multi-site collaboration and better collaboration and sharing with remote users and multiple locations around the world. And in Barnes & Noble's case, as we'll hear, jumping into the conversation with Richard, they had a cloud initiative moving from Store Simple and needed to, move their data off of there. And with that being said, go over to this slide. We'll jump into the conversation, but thank you for hanging with me there, Richard. So I think to kick off our conversation, do you want to just go over your background, the role you're in today, your organization, and a little bit about your IT environment?
Sure, thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. So I've been bouncing around in the IT world for quite some time. I joined Barnes & Noble back in 2019, right before the fun of COVID hit. So one of the things that we had done was we had a Store Simple on site, and it was quite old, so we had gone through an upgrade of that, first from the 5000, I think it was a 5200 series, to an 8100 series Store Simple device. And then, of course, Microsoft announced shortly after that they were going to discontinue the Store Simple line. So, I came into the organization really to assist with all things in the Unix Windows storage, enterprise data backup, the release engineering aspects of the company. So this was one of the first projects that I had taken on. And, so we kind of went through it. The Store Simple was a pretty decent device. It worked well for what we had. We had about 200 terabytes sitting on that. It was an on-prem device. I think it had about 30 terabytes on-prem, and then we archived the stale data up into the Azure cloud. So once we'd heard about that it was going to get decommissioned, we started looking around. Okay, what's a good solution that can provide the same capabilities that we had? That was goal number one. And then beyond that, we had some other, as you mentioned in the previous slide, we had some other storage environments that were being used for things like departmental shares, user shares, different things that applications were dumping data into and such that were outside really of the Store Simple. So we kind of took a multi-phase approach on it, understanding that we needed to get off the Store Simple by December 31st of 2022. That was really our primary goal. But then also looking at some of these other legacy storage environments and trying to understand how we can kind of take advantage of the Nasuni environment to do that. Some of the things we liked about it was it seemed to be pretty much a drop and play for what Store Simple was giving us. We could eliminate we had a lot of Windows filers that were sitting in front of the Store Simple with iSCSI connections to the back end. We could get rid of all those Windows devices and file servers and pretty much did it as just a vanilla cutover. So we replaced names with our Nasuni heads and we were off to the races. So we have right now today, we started this probably just about a year ago. I think we contracted with Nasuni somewhere in July. We started building out the environment in August and started to get our feet wet and then began our data migrations. It did take a while to migrate some of the data because some of our use cases were hundreds of millions of very small files. So they were applications that were writing email archives. There was data from applications that were being stored, small image files, different types of data that we were putting into this environment. And so that took a little bit longer than we expected. But we did work through it. And so as of today, we're pretty much complete. The Store Simple's been decommissioned. I think we've gotten rid of about 3 other small NAS-type devices from EMC mainly that are now decommissioned, roughly about another 80 terabytes of user data that we've put into the environment. So so far, that's pretty much been our journey and our environment to date.
Yeah, it's great. And we made this joke when we were prepping for this call, but Nasuni stands for NAS Unified, and it seems like with Barnes & Noble, you kind of unified all your legacy NAS hardware into Nasuni and are on that journey right now. So were there any challenges you were facing prior to using the cloud? Any challenges that are unique to your industry that you have found easier now that you've moved your data to the cloud?
So, I guess one of the things, and we're starting to see how easy it is to spin up a new filer head if we need it, right? So, for example, we're doing some migrations in other areas of the company with some database migrations, and we need some storage that we can share amongst different places. And, in the past, it might have been, getting some hardware, finding disks, this, that, and the other, with the Nasuni. It's really just spin up a head, open up the ports we need for whether it's going to be CIVIS or NFS mounts. And, we're off to the races. It's pretty fast. We do it in a matter of maybe a day, by the time we put in all of our change tickets to get things done, as opposed to having to go out by disk, and all of that. So that's really helped us out quite a bit, and we've been leveraging it to do things like that as well.
Okay, cool. And so you talked a little bit about the migration process. So is migrating to the cloud as scary as people think? Could you go over a little bit of your experience with that migration process with Nasuni?
Yeah, no, the migration itself, as I mentioned, it was a little time consuming, but mainly because of the use case of our data, and that was one of the things that we really couldn't get around. We were using tools like Robocopy or Datadobe or something like that, to do the data replication into the Nasuni heads. But as far as that, once we kicked off and the Nasuni technical team, they were right there with us, holding our hand all the way, helping us with any kinds of issues we had with the heads, or if there were things that were not working well with our scripts, or maybe caching was blowing up or something like that. We worked through all those problems, and it really just became, rinse and repeat, kick it off, figure out what we're going to do, get the data migrated, cut over. We did a lot of the cut overs by just renaming our objects in our namespace, and this way minimize the impact on the end users. To them, they were still calling the same device. They didn't know that it was no longer on-prem in a Store Simple or on a EMC NAS head or something like that. It was in the cloud. So it was really pretty transparent, and we did hit a couple of maybe performance issues where we might have overloaded a few of the filers, but as I mentioned, that was a pretty simple task. We just offloaded the workload from that filer and created a new one, spun it up, and in a day or so we were back up and running and alleviated the issue. So it's pretty flexible.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have a large professional services team here at Nasuni that does a great job with helping with migration and supporting our customers. So awesome that it was a good process for you. I know the whole idea of migrating all of your data and the cutovers is scary for a lot of customers. So glad you had a great experience with that. In the process of, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said it was a great experience. Yes, it was very good.
Great. So moving from Store Simple to Nasuni, you had there's many options out there. Were there any other vendors you considered? I know you were already using Azure Blob. Did you consider Azure Files as another alternative moving off of Store Simple?
Yeah, we did look at Azure Files. We looked at some other solutions from a couple of other vendors as well. And really what we liked about Nasuni was just the ease of really how it would replace our Store Simple. The fact that it could eliminate the filers that we had in our environment. Some of the other solutions, they were either software-based and still would require us to build a filer to sit in front of the back-end storage, whether it was in the cloud or on-prem. So we kind of like that. And, again, it was some of the use cases of our data. A lot of our data is archival, right? We don't really read and write it frequently. A lot of it just goes up. It's customer data that we need to save off. And, if there's an issue, we got to pull it back down. But there's really no performance around it. So it just made a lot of sense that this was a good solution to move toward. Again, with the filer heads being virtual machines in our on-prem environment, we could scale the internal cache as big or small as we needed it for that application. So, that's why we really fell on it. The Azure Files, it would have been a good fit, but it seemed more tailored for like workstation type users, desktop users who are offsite, and not really as much in the space we were looking to do with some of our application migrations that we were looking to move into this environment.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Let's take a break. We have one poll that we wanted to do in the middle of the conversation to break it up a little bit. So let's jump on that, and then a few more questions after that. So you can bring it up right here. So for the audience, do you have a cloud first or IT modernization initiative planned? And if so, what does that timeline look like? We'll give it a minute or so, get some of these answers in. Alrighty, so I think that you can now see the results. And overall, we talked about there's a lot of reasons to start moving your data to the cloud, and it looks like overall no one said do not have an initiative or not interested in it or staying on-prem. We got a few people with not a timeline yet, but something they're interested in, and then the rest, the answer was yes, whether it's starting next year, around the next 6 months, or it is a current initiative. So great to hear, and it looks like we're all on the same page. So, all right, go back to our title slide. And so, Richard, we talked a little bit about scalability being a big driver these days with the increasing amount of data, and I talked about a little bit about how scalable Nasuni is and the ease of collaboration between multiple locations. Have you seen that since you've gone to Nasuni, the amount of unstructured data that Barnes & Noble has grown, or have you seen an increase in the amount of users for this data or anything like that?
Not so much, really. As I mentioned, most of this was to replace, old legacy type solutions like the Store Simple that were going into life, or other solutions that we had on-prem that were just aging, and we really wanted to get off of. So really, the data set that we've moved was pretty much the same data set that we had.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible as we move forward. As I mentioned, we are looking at other things that we can leverage the Nasuni for, since it is very flexible. So we have used it for a few other things, but really, it was a pretty long journey, right? I said we started last year around August, September timeframe. We started probably doing our first data migrations in November, December, and we actually missed the date to get off of the Store Simple by December. And we finished up probably in February. So it's been really just getting this 200 plus terabytes of data that we had on our premises into this environment, and we've actually pretty much just completed everything we had wanted to do, really in the last month. And now we're looking at other opportunities that we can use the storage for. We're definitely looking around for where can it help us out. It is super flexible, and we think there are other areas we can use it.
Yeah. Do you have any use cases with remote employees or collaboration between different locations, or is that not the use case you're using Nasuni for right now?
So some of the data was mounted on end user workstations, in a drive that they would use and share across their departmental type shares and that nature. So yeah, we do use it for that, and it's pretty effective for that kind of amount. You basically have access to it pretty much anywhere, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
We also use Microsoft, that has OneDrive, so we use that a lot as well. So we leverage both of those two technologies kind of in tandem with each other.
Okay. And then how does the cloud enable your ransomware resilience strategy? We kind of talked about how, the architecture of Nasuni and with the edge instances, taking immutable snapshots to the cloud provides security there. When you made the choice to migrate to the cloud, did that have any part in it?
Yeah, so and we did have an event where we had some data compromised, and so that was one of the things that was important to our CIO as well. The fact that the Nasuni could protect this shared data, through the ransomware package that you offer on top of it. We're just getting started with that, but that's definitely something we want to look at, because we do realize we have quite a bit of data out here. A lot of it is snapshot, a lot of it is up in the cloud now, but we do want to make sure it's protected. When that happened, our Store Simple was impacted, and we were able to recover, but we were not able to recover everything that we needed. So that was one of the advantages we were looking at as well in the Nasuni, to
Yeah.
try and be proactive on the ransomware type feature that it provides, detect it before it causes impact.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, talking about like the cloud architecture, like we do have that ransomware solution as well, where you can get detection and the alerts. But even just with how the architecture of Nasuni is built, with all of those snapshots at a frequent basis, you're not, if you do have to recover, you're not, backing up from tape. You're simply dialing back the snapshots to the moment in time before that incident happened, whether it was, ransomware or a disaster. And it's extremely fast. And I think, if it, in the case of ransomware, if it affected a few files, all you are with Nasuni, you can just restore those exact files, not even the whole folder or even the whole volume that they were in. And and it's really fast too. We have I don't think we attached it, but have a really cool video of recovering 1 million files in less than a minute. So it's also can be extremely fast, just kind of how that cloud architecture works. All right, let's see what we got. So do you see the trend? I know you said, for right now you're using Nasuni for some of the same use cases and you're looking into other ways to use it. Overall, do you see the trend of unstructured data growing in general and when it comes to Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, that's a good question. Possibly a little bit. Again, I don't see it growing tremendously, but certainly,
Yeah.
as I mentioned, we are looking at different areas that we hadn't thought of to use a solution like this. And
Okay.
so we did purchase up to 300 terabytes, and like I mentioned, we're a little bit probably close to about 230 in the Nasuni environment right now. And we do have a few other areas we're looking at. So we'll see where we end up in the next couple of months, but yeah, we expect that we're going to grow into that for sure.
Okay. All right. So final question before we get into the audience questions. Is there any advice to other IT professionals in similar roles that you could provide given your experience, whether it's about Nasuni or anything?
Yeah, don't be afraid of the cloud. It's not going to hurt you. And there is technology out there that will definitely help you, as it helped us. Nasuni is one of them. There was some hesitation because of the costs associated around it, but the net we found of the hardware that we've decommissioned, the software and hardware support and maintenance we were paying on some of our storage arrays, the Microsoft Store Simple device itself, it all kind of washes out. And as I mentioned, it's very flexible. It's a good tool, and it's something that you'd want to have in your toolbox. Definitely consider it.
All right. Well, thank you, Richard. So, Scott, should we move to questions now? Oh, there you go.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. And great conversation. Yeah, and while we move to questions, I will just shift us into another poll just about, whether you'd like to learn more about how Nasuni can save you money and help you migrate your file data to the cloud. We'll just leave that poll up there in the background for everybody. Richard, this first question here is for you. They're wondering, is your leadership team happy with the move to Nasuni?
Yes. Yep. It definitely added value to the organization. As I mentioned, we got rid of a lot of legacy equipment, and that's pretty much been our driver, over the last couple of years, is to really refresh some of the older technology we had in place and improve and gain more efficiency and lower the cost. So overall, I think we've achieved those goals, and Nasuni definitely helped in the the unstructured data storage area for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know I used to run a magazine for the Microsoft partner community, and that Store Simple announcement was a traumatic event for a lot of the industry. Just that end of support there. So another question, Richard, for you: did you notice a change in performance after the switch?
As I had mentioned earlier, yeah, in a couple of instances, we did realize that we probably overloaded a few of the filers. But again, we went from a Windows farm sitting in front of our Store Simple device with iSCSI connections to the back end, and we really only built out like 2 Nasuni filer heads. So we kind of shorted ourselves a little bit in the performance side. but we were easily able to spin up additional filers, offload the workload, split it up amongst multiple filers, and once we did all of that, the experience to the back end it's transparent. Nobody really notices it for the data that we're using it.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Ben, this one's for you. They're asking, I already use Microsoft Azure. Can Nasuni use the available capacity in my existing contract, or do I need to buy more?
I'm not actually sure of that question. Or let me think. We use Microsoft Azure. I'll get back to you on that one. I'm not sure how those structures work.
All right.
But we can answer in the chat here.
Yeah, super. Richard, another one for you here. Did your end users notice an impact after the switch?
Yeah, again, not really. We tried to keep it as transparent to the end users as we could, so the share names, everything stayed the same when we migrated to the Nasuni device. The only difference, as I mentioned, was the overloading of some of the filers. Initially, we didn't understand the performance impacts of that, but we were able to resolve that fairly quickly.
Okay. There's another interesting question. I'd love to have both of you sort of tackle this, but they're asking, how can we approach the executive team with moving on-prem or cloud infrastructure onto cloud backup solutions such as Nasuni? So Richard, maybe you first. Like, what are some of the most effective arguments you think from your experience and from?
So some of the criteria I used to make the decision to go this way, we did have a bunch of on-prem storage. We had a bunch of on-prem Windows filers that we were running, clustered filers with DFS, whatever we're running behind it. So by going with the Nasuni head, we were able to eliminate all of that on-prem hardware. So we got that out of our data center. We got rid of the storage, all the associated costs, around maintaining and software licensing that we had to pay for that. And we put it up in the cloud. To the other question, it did piggyback into our current Azure subscription. We have a subscription where we bought the storage, the 300 terabytes in the back end in Azure, which cost X, the support cost for the Nasuni software as well. So that was really the biggest argument for it. Number one, we had to get off the Store Simple. Number two, this was a pretty cost-effective way to do it. We didn't have to buy an additional NAS environment or build it out internally. We pretty much just replaced, migrated, and decommissioned. That was my biggest argument.
Okay.
Yeah, and from my side, I think it would really come down to those three pillars on the first slide. Just moving to the cloud on a hybrid cloud platform like Nasuni, you have that scalability. You have the ability to grow as much as you want in the coming years, and no worries of not being able to have that space. You have the ability to retain the snapshots for years and years and not worry about that, as well as being able to recover from any kind of disaster or security issue extremely easily. So you have that peace of mind as well. And from a performance point of view, the collaboration aspect. I know with Richard, they have a lot of small files, but one of our largest customer bases in the AEC industries that are using a lot of CAD files and big engineering files and sending them through different locations and working together on these larger files. So it really gives a lot of freedom there for collaboration, worldwide as well. So yeah, it really comes down to that scale, performance, security.
Okay. All right. Super. Well, I want to thank everybody for answering the poll. I'm going to go ahead and close that down. I think we've run through most of the questions. Also appreciate Matt from Nasuni in the background answering some of the questions there in chat. But I think sort of as a final question here, Ben, just if somebody wants to get started with Nasuni, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, we got the big scan me on the slide there to take you onto the web page and learn a little bit more about Nasuni. Yeah, I would say go to the website there. We have some great demos and information on that, and feel free to reach out to one of us to learn a little bit more.
Okay. Well, Ben, Richard, great conversation. I really enjoyed being like a fly on the wall here, listening to you guys talk about that experience and all the benefits there that you've reaped. So, thank you for doing this conversation. Really appreciate
You're
it.
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you, Richard.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Well, thanks to both of you, and I'm going to let you guys go back to your busy days, and we will just be here for a minute to do the prize drawing. Okay, so the winner of our Best Buy gift card prize drawing today is Jesus Liu from California. So congratulations to Jesus Liu. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Nasuni for making this event possible. And of course, I want to thank all of you for attending and for your excellent questions there in the chat. That concludes today's event. Have a fantastic rest of your day.